I don't know how many of you noticed this, but in the last chapter of Taizai, Mael had 6 wings. But as soon as this chapter begins, he has only 4. Now, I compared both chapters, and I made sure to really look this chapter over to make sure that, let's say, his wings weren't cut off or something, but that was not the case. I looked extensively in the last chapter and this chapter to kind of find a reason to why he only has 4 wings now, and the only thing I could assume is that it was some form of art error either this week or last week. What that means is either A, Nakaba most likely was like, look, I don't think this man should have 6 wings. It's probably going to be incredibly difficult to draw 6 wings on this dude that's already looking very detailed as is. And so most likely he might have took 2 wings away, and then he gave him only 4 wings in this chapter. Or he forgot to add the 6 wings in this chapter, which honestly, I don't know how you could forget something like that, but errors do happen. But, I don't know. I don't know if it's because maybe it's in hint at something, maybe like a power-up or something for Mael, or his wings signify something, but it's very clear that his wings, his number of wings did change between the 2 chapters, and they weren't cut off by King or anything, so I'm just like, what's going on there? I was just very shocked about that, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, at first I thought I was seeing things, like when I was reading the chapter, I'm like, didn't this man have 6 wings? Like, that's what I was looking at when I was reading the chapter, but then I go back and I'm like, oh yeah, he did. So, what happened there? I don't know. But okay, I want to point out something, though. I want to point out that this pose that Galther did, grabbing Mael and about to just end it all and, you know, a large radius around him, this pose is very similar to this pose from Dragon Ball Z. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You cannot unsee the similarity between the two, and I'm like, oh. But there is one difference, though. The Cyberman was successful, was able to end Yamcha. However, Galther didn't end that well. That man got hit straight to the ground. So, if there's one thing we can get from this, is that Mael is not a Yamcha. Good man. But okay, jokes aside, though, Galther, he got knocked down like it was nothing, and he's actually being brainwashed, like he's seeing an illusion, which is honestly ironic when you think about Galther as a character, because it's not just the fact that Galther is someone that can use illusions and mess with someone's mind, but it's also the fact that he is responsible, or at the very least the OG Galther and him, is responsible for Mel's state of mind, why he acts like he does right now, because they messed with his mind. So, it's ironic that Galther now is seeing his dead lover because of the illusion and the commandment. That's interesting. I like how Nakama went about that. I think it's just poetic justice in a way. Now, speaking of which, I want to mention that at the end of this chapter, we have another death. Man, Mel's body count is getting pretty high right now. Like, this man is seriously getting a pretty insane body count. I mean, this man has ended Mon, he has ended Derriere, he's ended Sar and Tar, and now he's ended Oslo. So, he's got 5 major deaths, honestly, on his belt. Like, that's impressive, honestly. I mean, it's definitely building him up as a final villain, not gonna lie, because usually you don't see something like this, but he's honestly taken out a lot of people. I mean, Sarantar is just insane, but Mon and Derriere, which have been built up for 100 plus chapters, that's crazy too. Now Oslo as well, which is one of the originals from like the beginning of the series, like the first 30 chapters, that's also ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, Mel's not messing around by any means, and Nakaba is definitely not messing around in this final arc. This is definitely the final arc. You can definitely feel it because of these characters just dying left and right against this man. It's definitely building him up to be a major threat. Now, talking about that final segment, though, Oslo sacrifices himself, and in a way, I think it's an interesting end for him, because remember Ro, technically the original, and that was reincarnated into Oslo. Ro, he had a promise he made, and he finally was able to uphold that promise. It even says at the end of the chapter, and I'm happy he got to do that, and I'm honestly sad he has to die, but I'm glad he was able to follow through with what he wanted to do, protect, you know, King and everybody else, the fairies and stuff. I'm glad he was able to do something like that. That does make me happy. It's like, It's crazy to think that a character that's like an original character is now gone. He sacrificed himself. I mean, his ability was very unique as well and important. I mean, being able to teleport to long distances. I mean, he's the reason Diane was even able to be there in the first place. So, when you think about it, he's been a relevant character for a very long time, and I'm sad to see him go. I think, honestly, this might not be the final time we see a character probably have to sacrifice themselves against Mael, though. I truly believe that we probably have many before us before this man is finally put down. So, anyways, with Oslo apparently dying, there is a little comment about King at the end of the chapter, saying something is awakening inside of King. If I had to assume anything, and since this is a shonen, I'm going to assume King is going to have his wings grow to full, extent. Like, his wings are fully going to grow, and he's going to have his full maximum power. Because remember, his wings are still growing. They're like baby wings, and they're hilarious looking. And we know once his wings fully grow, his power is going to be insane. I mean, he's already shown his skill, his power is already ridiculous even without the wings. And then with the wings slightly grown out, his power grew quite a bit. And so he has a lot of room to grow as soon as his wings pop out. Now, I mean, if that is really what's going to happen, for instance, in the next chapter, King gets really upset, something awakens inside of him, his wings grow out to full extent, kind of how the previous, Fairy King was, then he's probably going to put up a pretty decent fight. I don't say he's going to be able to put Mael down or anything, but I say he'll be able to, at the very least, put up a decent fight, because, I mean, King, he is very strong by a large margin. He's always been one of those characters that's been incredibly strong since the very beginning of Taizai, and his skill set, like what he has with his, sacred weapon, to his abilities, they're pretty freaking strong. So, I mean, I think he would put up a decent fight for the very least against Mael, and then I think he's going to lose for someone else to probably have to jump in. But I'm looking forward to it, seeing how King, if he really is getting, like, his full wings or not. That's what I'm very curious about. Now, let's talk about Mael for a second. Besides the wings, like 2 wings being missing, it's very apparent once again that Nagba wants us to pay attention to the commandments on Mael's face. And as I pointed out in my last chapter review, there seems to be a cooldown timer, or at the very least a weakness with the commandments on you. Soon as Mael uses a commandment, one of them phases out, and you see how when he uses it, it's gone. And if I had to assume anything, maybe in that moment when he uses a commandment, he's actually, taking out the commandment from his body and using it. So, for instance, if someone was able to somehow grasp the commandment, maybe they can steal it from him or something. I don't know if that's what Naka was trying to imply, but the symbol is disappearing from his face, which I'm assuming he might be pulling it out of his body to use an attack. Now, if that is not the case, it just represents a cooldown timer. For instance, he uses the ability, and you see it fade. It's a cooldown timer, he's using the ability, and then it fades slowly back. So that means that he cannot just spam the ability over and over. I also want to point out something that was very obvious from this chapter. Mael did not use the same commandment 2 times in a row. He constantly used a different commandment. Like, he used one commandment, and then he used a different one, and then a different one, and then he went back to the other one, or a different one, and then went back to the other one. He never used the same commandment 2 times in a row. So once again, I believe Nakba is hinting at the fact that Mael does have a cooldown and a limited amount of usages he can use his commandments in a given time. For instance, let's say he uses his commandment, he might have like 30 seconds until he can use it again, and so he's forced to use another commandment. I believe there is intervals to where he cannot use his commandment, because that was constantly popping up in this chapter. Nakba really wants us to pay attention to the fading commandment symbols that are on Mael's body. Also, it seems like Elizabeth is able to pretty much negate any of the commandments that Mael uses against the sins, which is interesting. I mean, we already know that Elizabeth is probably stronger than an archangel. It's been hinted at for a long time. It's never been clarified, but it's kind of a no-brainer when you think about how she was fighting with Meliodas, which I've constantly, talked about. So, I mean, her being able to heal commandments, guess makes sense, because, I mean, think about it. Number one, I mean, the Archangels were immune to commandments. They couldn't really be affected at all, which is why Sar and Tar were able to go up against, the 10 Commandments like it was nothing. But if Elizabeth is stronger than an Archangel, or at the very least on their level, then it makes sense why she would be able to compete and not be able to be affected by most commandments. I mean, we did see her slightly get affected in the last chapter, so that does actually leave a lot of questions. Yeah, okay, so that is weird. Now that I think about it, scrap what I just said there. She can be affected, apparently, because she was on the ground about to die. So, yeah, she can be affected by a commandment. Then what's going on there? So, yeah, Elizabeth can heal commandments at the very least, but she can be affected. So she doesn't have the protection like an archangel does. But she is still able to heal commandments, apparently, because of what she did for Diana King in this chapter, and how she's also going to be healing up Gowther, too. So, a lot of questions I have about that. Honestly, that's something that Nakba actually needs to clarify a little bit when it comes to if Elizabeth can be affected or not. Now, still, one other thing I do want to point out is that it's still not clarified if Mael recognizes anyone. Like, I don't think he even talked in this chapter. I could be wrong. Maybe I didn't read the speech bubbles properly, but I don't even think Mael even talked in this chapter, which once again puts into question if Mel's even in the right state of mind. Like, is he even thinking? Is he just, like, just pure rage incarnate or something? Or, I mean, does he remember Elizabeth? Because, like I said, he attacked her in the last chapter, so I'm really curious if he's even the same person anymore, or is he someone just completely different? Because I don't think he even talked in this chapter. So yeah, that's pretty much about it when it comes to this chapter. It's a simple chapter, makes you question a lot, but at the same time, it's very predictable on what happened. I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen with King, and how strong he's going to get. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.